7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition. Liftoff.
What's up, everybody? Bremont here. I have an awesome crew because it is Pennsylvania Derby Day. We are super excited. We have a crap load of games in the StableDuel app, but there's a lot of money to be won. I think you look at the card and it's like, boy, this is going to be chalky, but I don't know. I've heard some picks from On the Wrong Lead. I've heard some picks from Gino, and I know we're going to get some value from Jeff over here at Charting Horse Value, so it's going to be a super exciting day. What's up, everybody? Hey, Gino, how are you?
Doing well. I'm excited. As you mentioned, too, we're going to have some key scratches. So for StableDuel, when you're building your lineups, you may be able to find some races where you can catch a horse that's going to be a bigger price than they're going to be out on the track today. So I have a couple races that I think you have to jump into just based on the way that the value is now with some of these horses based off their morning line. I'm pumped. 13 races, 8 stakes races, 5 graded stakes, 2 grade ones. I think you said 4 contests at StableDuel, from a free contest all the way up to the big $150 game that we're all going to be playing in, $12,000 in prizes. I'm pumped.
It's going to be a good day. I'm kind of like, all right, do I set a budget or do I just go buck wild? I don't know. So Jeff, how are you? Arkansas hat on. It's a big day, twice over for you.
I'm going to be betting Win Place Show today in honor of Blue Pig Suey. I'm going to the A&M Arkansas game later. Got my Razorback gear on here. Great day of racing. I'm not going to lie. I'm a huge Hot Rod Charlie fan, but there is a lot of value to be had, I think, on the card. I'm looking forward to it.
I agree. Josh, up there, are you doing your homework? Are you ready? What's going on?
I got everything, but I'm not used to being up this early on a Saturday, so I'm just making sure I got my scratches marked. But it looks like so far nothing's affected anything that I'm going to be doing here. But I'm kind of jealous. Jeff's going to be going to a nice fun football game. I'm going to be going to a funeral at Arlington Park today. So yeah.
Jeez, we're like, God, to start out that little.
Everybody
awkward.
did go, but then again.
Yes. I'm going to be playing the pick 8 there as well.
Well, speaking of a funeral, I'm just going to call this out right now. So I do the StableDuel emails, and I actually, to make this worse, I did the StableDuel blog, and I'm thankfully getting a lot of tweets of support. Jackie's Warrior is not a filly. Jackie's Warrior is a colt. I do it every single time. Gino said he did it, but the worst is I put it in print for a very upstanding company. So right here, you can butcher me, but sorry, that happens all the time. I think like you call Colts filly when you're looking at forms, but this was kind of brutal because he's a very good colt. And I was like, she's like loved by everyone. And okay, well, moving on.
It's a real fast Anna situation, huh?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I mean, in fairness, guys, stop giving like colts like female names. And I know that we're in a different world now, so I'm sure I'll get butchered for that too. But yeah, it got me. It got me good.
It's Jackie's Warrior.
I know, Jeff.
Okay.
I know, but still.
She owns the Warrior. All right.
All right. Well, then I guess I owe an apology to Jackie. So sorry, Jackie. My bad, girl. I totally took that away from you. So.
All right.
Okay. So quickly, we're just going to go through what we have in the StableDuel app. If I can quickly pull that up. We added a free ride today. We got some feedback. We haven't been doing free rides lately. We kind of were testing out a couple other things, but a free ride is back in there. So if you have not played StableDuel, today is your day. It is absolutely free to get into play. It's $50. So the first 5 spots, I think, are going to make some money there. So there's a free ride in there for Pennsylvania Derby. But then we've also got a $10 game, and then the feature game, which is why we bring Jeff on here. Not the only reason, but Charting Horse Value Pennsylvania Derby Dash. This is $12,500. It's $4,000 to the winner. So $150 is what it costs you. And again, it's the entire card. It's not per race. $50 for your entry for the entire card, with the winner walking away with $4,000. And I know I've heard some handicappers and they're like, well, you know, like we want the payouts to be $30,000 like it is in a pick six. Okay, I understand. But you know what you're up against in a pick six? Every freaking horse in those 6 races. You're not against that in a stable duel. You're only against the number of stables that are playing in that game. And I can tell you it is less than a factor of 12 times. Yeah, I'm not even going to try. I'm not going to try. I call Jackie's Warrior Cult. I'm not going to try. And then we do have a double up. And double ups, you just double your entry, and the top 40% of finishers in a double up double their entry. So there's some good value there, $500. But again, $500 to $1,000. That's better than my Fidelity account is doing right now. So there is your stable duel roster and your stable duel games. I think we should hop in just talk about some of the races. And we don't really have a schedule here, but I know I've got my charting horse value right here.
Nice.
And I looked for some of like the big value angles on this one. So there's race 4, race 8, and race 13. Jeff, if you would want to talk about those, or if there's other ones you want to talk about. But let's just hit the stakes races a little bit, and then we'll bring in charting horse value. Does that work?
Yep. By the way, did you guys see I hit the 76 to 1 shot at Woodbine last
Holy
weekend?
crap.
Oh, and wow.
Yeah, about 4 or 5 of my customers all hit it, and 76 to 1. And then I hit the 15 to 1 in race 11, and a bunch of people hit the pick 4 with that 15 to 1 shot in there.
Nice.
So, you know, yeah, I give out value. Not too many people giving out 76 to 1 shots.
Nice.
Definitely. So there's some value today. Like we said, it looks a little chalky, but the odds can change too. So keep that in mind. All right. So I'm pulling up my form. Which race do we want to start with? Why don't we start with race 8? This is the grade 3 Greenwood Cup Stakes. You've got 1.5 miles on the dirt here. It is for, wow. There's a lot of past performances in these horses. Who do we got, Gino? Let's start with you.
So yeah, they're going to be going 1.5 miles in here, and the horse that kind of jumped out to me is one that's really consistent. I'm looking at the 5, Sugar Ray 2. So he comes out of a race where he was behind a horse named Lone Rock last time. Lone Rock is one of the better distance horses. Lone Rock had won 4 races in a row before just finishing second in his most recent start. If you look at the Parks overall form for Sugar Ray 2, he really likes this racetrack, and he's just consistent. You just sort of know what you're going to get from him. He's going to take back. He's going to make one late run. He's the type of horse who's just moved up the ranks recently over the last year and a half, because he's a distance horse, and he's just going to come running when a lot of other horses don't. He's actually outfinished Moretti, who will take a lot of money in here too. So I'm looking at a horse who's 8 to 1, who's only going to cost me $3,000 in stable duel. I expect him to get bet down. You're going to hear me mention that a few times today. Sort of the opposite of when you're playing a race individually at the track. You probably have your value line on a horse. Hey, this horse is 8 to 1. If he's like 5 to 1, I'll make a bet. If he gets lower than that, maybe I won't. Stable duel, it's the opposite. You're kind of looking for those horses that you think the morning line might be a little off. If you can get a horse that's 8 to 1 and you only pay $3,000 for them, and then they go off at 7 to 2, well, you're already doing well. Win or lose, you've already put yourself in a good spot based on value. So I'll do that a few times today, and I'll start with Sugar Ray 2. Who
do you got, Josh?
Yeah, I actually see it pretty similar to Gino. I love Sugar Ray 2 here in this spot. $3,000. One of the things that Caleb has talked about all the time. He's one of my buddies from On the Wrong Lead. He's put out some nice Stable Duel content. He has won plenty of contests with Stable Duel. Yeah, some nice big ones. He's gotten bottles of wine sent from Bree. I don't know if those were a contest or if it was just some kind of like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what pretty people do. I don't know.
It was for the wine festival at Del Mar.
But Moretti is probably in this entire card is probably one of the horses you're going to want to try and beat. I know Caleb hates the horse. I don't really like the horse in this spot. I think 2 to 1 is way too short. And that in Stable Duel, you got maybe 2 or 3 in the entire card. You got 2 or 3 other, I think, more likely winners that are only going to cost you a little bit more. So I think that's where you spend up. And I think here there's 2 horses that you kind of have to key around, or you probably want to look at. Sugar Ray 2, Gino did a great job breaking it down, has run with Lone Rock, who is absolutely the best horse in this division. Didn't run all that well last time out, Lone Rock didn't, but this horse finished second, beat Moretti last time out. I think Gino kind of covered all that. I'm a little interested in Seafoam, the 8. In these marathons, sometimes the pace just gets way too slow, and maybe the horse that gets to the front just walks the dog and wires them. Seafoam has not gone this long, looking at pedigree, probably doesn't want to go this long, but if the pace is slow enough, right, where the horse is just jogging out on the front end, that's sometimes a great equalizer when it comes to pedigree. So I think I think Seafoam makes a little bit of sense here, also at $3,000, 8-1 on the morning line. And I think you kind of just got to decide which of those two horses that you think you can upset Moretti with.
Yeah, I am a big fan of Seafoam. Of course, the last time I didn't bet and I just got a little scared and there was a win. But I'm interested to hear what Jeff has to say here, because on the charting horse value, we've got Sheer Flattery up top. What do you think, Jeff? What are you looking at here?
My top horse is also Sugar Ray 2. If you look at that energy, he's got dominant energy of 100 compared to everybody else. So that's my top horse. You guys have hit it hard. Lone Rock would have beat any horse in the nation that day. Sheer Flattery is the other horse I'm going to bet, and a little bit lower odds. Very, very tactical. Will be right up there with Seafoam. The Seafoam and Sheer Flattery are probably running 1-2 and trying to slow down the pace. And I think Sheer Flattery's got a legitimate shot to win at a good price.
So 6-1, $5,000 in the StableDuel app. So I would consider that a value play. Again, if you think about your average horse with your $50,000 bankroll, 10 horses, $5,000. So that gives you some spend somewhere else with a $9,000 horse, and then find that 8-1. And I'm sure we'll talk about a couple of those as we did in this one for $3,000. So yeah, I think that's kind of a good rounded bout for race 8. Let's go on to the next.
We're all playing against Moretti, right?
Oh, yeah.
That's the one. That's the one common, is that this just feels like a race where it's not worth spending up. Win or lose for Moretti, I don't want to spend up that much of my bankroll in a race where I'm not that high on the favorite.
Yeah, and you're gonna have to spend in some of these races. There are some powerhouse horses, fillies, colts in these races that you need to spend up. So you're going to need some of these value plays. So to go against a horse like Moretti, you're going to have to do in some of these stables. So good point, Gino. I love it. Let's go to a 5 furlong race on the turf. This is race 9, another stakes race. We're looking at the grade 3 turf monster stakes. There's a horse called the Beer Can Man. Who do we got here, Gino? Let's start back out with you.
I believe the 7 Belgrano and the 10 the Connector are scratched, just for discussion purposes. There are 2 horses I'm looking at and possibly making different lineups. That's also a nice thing you want to make, especially with 4 different contests too today. Maybe you play 1 or 2 in the big ones, and then maybe there's a couple other horses you didn't get to use. You can play in some of the smaller ones, and you can. I hate doing that, though, because that's the lineup that'll end up winning the big one. So I always like to have – but if you want to have a few different options, you really can do so today, especially with the free contest, with the smaller games. In the 9th race, I'm going to be using Caratori in a lot of spots. I always gravitate to him. He's become a horse who I love to bet. He's hurt me a couple times this year pretty bad. I needed him last time at 23-1, and he ran his eyeballs out. He finished second in Saratoga. He ran another great race earlier in the year at Sam Houston when he did the same sort of thing. And he was on the lead last time out. I think he's actually a little bit better when he can press. He can sit just behind. He's one of the classier horses in the field, if not the classiest to me. And I do have some questions with Caravel against the boys. She's been really, really good beating up against the fillies. And this is a little tougher spot, though. This is against some of the better turf sprinters. If you look at who Caratori has faced in his last couple starts, he was second behind Fast Boat, and he defeated a horse named Gear Jockey. Gear Jockey came out of that race, went over to Kentucky, and won a grade 3 turf sprint really, really nicely. Did it impressively. And then a horse named Just Might, who beat Caratori 2 starts back. He has won 4 straight stakes races, 2 on the turf, 2 on the dirt. I think Caratori's the class. I actually wouldn't be shocked if he went off favored in this race. If he was like 5-2 when it was all said and done. I think it's a really good spot for Caratori.
Yep, I agree there. Jeff, what do you think?
Well, first of all, I don't like this race at all. There's a lot of speed, not very many good closers.
True.
You're going to have to get an extremely good trip to win, and you could pick a favorite and end up seventh. I would be either passing this race or going with a price, and I'm going to go with Beer Can Man, who is a little down on my sheet, but has really good form cycle, is eligible to improve second off the layoff, and gets the rail draw. And these turf sprints, those rail draws are, not a bad place to be. And so 8-1 is only going to cost me $3,000. So I would go that route, or I wouldn't even play this race.
I think it's important. I asked a bunch of, I guess we'll call them professionals, as some of us call ourselves, and some of us will say there's no such thing as a professional. But asked for tips, and one of them was like, don't chase after money. Like, know what races you want to bet, know which ones you don't. Sit out ones that you just don't have, the confidence, or they look like a mess. Like, don't chase after money.
Especially today, because there's 13 races.
Exactly.
Like, I'm normally on the play one every race because I want to get as much. I want to be able to try to win every race, if possible. But when there's 13, you don't have to worry about it. When there's 10, you kind of feel forced, like, okay, I want to get one horse in every race so I can try to win. Today, you can skip a few. You're absolutely right, Jeff. So I wouldn't feel forced in any race. To be honest, the other horse that I would have mentioned would have been Beer Can Man. So I'm glad you mentioned him. And the only concern I have is what you said, is the rail can either be your best friend or can be really tricky in a sprint like this, where you get shuffled back and you end up losing 3 or 4 lengths, and then you're in trouble. But that would be the only other horse I mentioned. Don't feel like you have to play a race today when there's 13. Just focus on the races you really like.
Yeah, absolutely. Josh, any thoughts?
Yeah, and I kind of want to touch on something that Gino said. He's talking about kind of having one horse in every race. And in daily fantasy, you always talk about exposure, right? Like you want to have exposure to, certain players or certain games where you think that there's possibility for there to be, big scores. Well, in StableDuel, if you have a horse in every race, then you have a shot to have a winner in every race, which means you have a shot to get 60 points plus in every race. So I think that's kind of something that you kind of got to keep in mind, is you got 13 races, right? Find the races that you can find the most likely winners and make sure you have exposure in those races. In this race, this is kind of a tough race because I really think that I have 2 horses in here I really like. Gino's already touched on Karatari for all the same reasons that he talked about already. The class. I know I often say class doesn't matter, but when you have a horse that just finished behind Just Might, who has gone out and won 4 straight and has just lost a Fast Boat, who's a really, really great turf sprinter, and then Gear Jockey came back and won that nice race at Kentucky Downs. It's hard to ignore the 4 horse. I'm a little concerned about the 4 just because I don't know what the horse is going to do with this kind of pace scenario. There seems to be a lot of like need the lead types in this race, which there often are in turf sprints, but that usually means you want the horse that's going to sit just off the first 2 or 3 horses, right? You don't want it's rare that you get a turf sprinter like oh goodness, who am I thinking of? The real deep closer, the one that was a mom that just won. Alexandra. It's really weird. You get like an Alexandra type, right? Who is just like, hey, I'm just going to miss the break every time and come from the cloud. So I'm going to go with the other kind of short price in this race, the 5 Fire Crow. Mm-hmm. You're going to be paying 7.5K here for this horse, but you're getting Joel Rosario aboard, who, in my opinion, is probably the best turf sprint jock in the country. I don't see him putting Fire Crow right on the engine. I see him sitting just off, kind of like last time in the turf sprint. And I think that Fire Crow's going to get first run on all the speed here, and hopefully can just outkick him. It's going to be $7.5 So you're going to be paying up a little bit, but I'm not going to touch a horse like Caravel when you have so many horses in this race. It's just not going to be the value you need, I think, to get the points you need out of this race here.
Mm-hmm. I think McLean's music is one of those sires that is very underrated. Like you find some sneaky offspring of this one. Mm-hmm. So interesting to look at. So we've got Michael. What's up, Michael? Joel Rosario is the best turf sprinter in the country, bar none.
I think a lot of that has to do with just he's the best finisher, right? So in a situation like a turf sprint where you think that last quarter mile or that last furlong is the most important about just getting them in the clear and going, pressing the button. If Joel's like a half a length behind anyone, I feel like he's going to get there because he's just that strong late in the lane.
And Joel was Alexandra's rider.
Yep.
Pretty much almost every single time, right? So there you go.
Yeah.
So double, triple. All right. Let's go to the next race. So that was race 9. We've still got 3 stakes races today at Parks.
He.
Yeah, what?
he.
Jackie.
What did I do
Jackie's
now?
warrior.
Okay, we're going to Jackie.
Oh God.
That's where we're going.
I literally am like thinking, because I've done it so many times, and every time I found out that it's a he, I'm like, wow, I really need to remember that. And then the next race, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's a really cool feeling. It's one of those. It's not going to happen. All right, real talk. We're going to talk about horses here. 6 furlongs is a grade 2 Gallant Bob Stakes. On the dirt, 300,000 is the purse. Gino, I just like how you kick it off. Who do we got here?
Yeah, I don't. Depending on how you want to play this race, if like Jackie's Warrior is no doubt the horse to beat. I was actually talking to John De Silva, who was helping get some of the horses to run in their stakes races out at Parks. He works over at Parks, and he said he was trying to keep it quiet that Jackie's Warrior was coming because he didn't want to scare other people off. Yeah. He didn't want to. If he told them that Jackie's Warrior was coming, a lot of people weren't showed up in this spot. I think Newbaum even said they were thinking about maybe scratching and running somewhere else now because Jackie's Warrior showed up. Yeah, if he's even running like a B, game in here, he's going to crush this field. He's really good. He's drawn well, which is nice. Like if he was drawn on the rail, maybe you would worry about him getting into some trouble or something. He can just sit nicely there from the outside. If you want to spend up, Jackie's is the one. I'm probably going to skip this race, to be honest, because then if something quirky happens and a lot of people have Jackie, I'm just not involved in a one way or the other, and I can try to pick up my points in other races. If you feel like you want to zag where everybody zigs, I would go with Baron, the 6, who is really, really honest. You know what you're going to get from this guy. He's going to show up. He's going to be tactical. He's going to be close to the front end. He has a couple bad races on his page, and you have legitimate excuses for those. If you look 2 starts back, he tried going 1 mile and an eighth at Saratoga. Well, that's just way too far. He doesn't want to do that. This is much more his game sprinting. And if you look back in the Bayshore, that was in April. That was when he actually kind of took the acid test. He went over to Aqueduct to see if he could compete with, this type of horse. And he completely missed the break. And then when he missed the break, Drain the Clock was able to get out front and cruise on the front end. Remember, Drain the Clock is actually a horse who's defeated Jackie's Warrior in the past too. That's a very nice animal. And so Baron had no shot that day. Drain the Clock got the lead. Baron tried to come up and press, but it was press and then fell back. If you're looking for someone to beat Jackie's Warrior, it's Baron. I'll probably skip this race in StableDuel.
So question for that, because I think some of these are important. If you're going to spend ridiculous money on a 4 to 5, to me, you want that horse to win by lengths upon lengths upon lengths, because again, that's going to cost you, I think, $11,000 in your StableDuel.
Yep.
And so you want to add, 10 plus points on there to cover for some of the other values that are like nicking you, here and there. So do you think if people are spending on Jackie's Warrior and he has the race that he is blowing out, do you think he's going to be a 10 plus lengths horse?
My only worry is that they've got bigger fish to fry down the line, right? And that's my concern with him, is that if you look at 3 of his last 4 races, he's been in battles. And so I don't know if they're going to want to let him loose here as much as get a nice victory. I think that's kind of why they picked this spot out, sort of figuring that it may not be as difficult. You won't have to deal with a Life is Good or some horse like that, one of the better sprinters. You can get a nice prep, get yourself ready. You got 5 or 6 weeks to the Breeders' Cup now. So I don't actually think they really want a race like that where he runs off and wins by 10 or has that monster victory. That was kind of in the back of my head when I decided not to use him in this spot.
Okay.
Yeah. Jeff, what are you thinking in this one?
Oh, I think he's the most likely winner in the race, Jackie's Warrior. I think he's the most likely winner on the day.
Yeah.
He's dominant on energy on my sheet, and he gets my PFDS odds. So I always say that the odds lines I put in are better than the odds that the morning line puts in. That's my personal opinion, of course. But last week when we played Delaware, that proved right. I had a 12-1 shot on the morning line. I had it as the best horse in the race, went off at 6-5. Another race, I had a 6-1 shot. Best horse in the race went off at 2-5. So, I mean, when I have an odds line that I come up with on a horse, it's reliable. I actually came up with 4-5 on this horse. So 4-5 is actually a fair price, and he's going to blow away this field. That's my opinion.
All right, Josh, are you on the Jackie's Warrior train? Are you on his Jackie Warrior train?
So, kind of going back to DFS once again, there's something that when you play these big contests with really top heavy prizes, there's something you always have to consider called ownership percentage, right? So Jackie's Warrior, you have to put yourself in the mindset of what other people are going to do.
Yep.
Do you think Jackie's Warrior is going to be owned by 50% of stables, 60% of stables, 70% of stables, right? How many people do you think are going to use Jackie's Warrior? I think Jackie's Warrior is going to be used a ton. So I think that this is just a race that I skip because yes, Jackie's Warrior might win, right? But if Jackie's Warrior wins, scores 70 points, right, on the top end, somebody just spent over 20% of their budget for the entire day on 70 points. And yeah, like that kind of works out because about 350 points is usually where you want to be to put yourself into the spot for a big score. But if Jackie's Warrior maybe just barely wins, right, you get down to 60 points or maybe, geared down 61, 62. Well, now that value proposition looks a little less because now if you're looking for a points per dollar kind of perspective, that's going to total out to about 300, 310. So maybe by skipping this race, even though Jackie's Warrior might score you 65 points and might be a sure thing, hey, look for a better value proposition. I mean, maybe you look at someone like the one Real Talk. You got Paco Lopez aboard. I mean, this horse has got speed. Doesn't have 21 and 2 speed like Jackie's Warrior, but it's got 22 speed. So maybe Real Talk just sits off there and nobody does any passing. And, it's 5-1, which I always forget 5-1. $6,000. $6,000. And hey, maybe you pick up 40 points, right? And you leave yourself in a decent spot here, leaving this race. But
you also hit it. If everybody else is getting those, if there's 70% of people getting those 68, 70 points or whatever you pick up from Jackie, you're not getting that separation. It doesn't do all that much for you. I'm in the same spot. You could take the free space here. I just rather maybe stay away from this race, because I don't want to be rooting against the horse. You know what I mean? You put yourself in a weird spot. You're rooting against this heavy favorite because you want it's better for me not to touch races like this, you know?
On the opposite side of the spectrum, I know, Bree, you were talking about all the different contests that we're running for StableDuel. If you're playing the double up, if you're not using Jackie's Warrior, you're an idiot.
Absolutely.
So you need to use Jackie's Warrior because the double up isn't so much about, blowing people out. It's about getting to, about 300, probably about 300, 275, getting in that range. Jackie's Warrior should be in every single double up lineup.
Yeah, you keep talking DFS, and it's the same DFS language, right? It's like you're playing a head-to-head game versus a cash game, one of those big tournaments. And it's like anything, if you want to be the one to win, if you're playing a mandatory payout or you're playing like a jackpot type wager somewhere, you have to zig because you know that if you play the logicals all the way down, you're not hitting the jackpot. It's the same thing in StableDuel. Some days you can play pretty basic all the way through and win, but you want to get a little outside the box, at least 1 or 2 races, and that's how you really win.
Yeah, it's just like any other horse racing contest, right? Like if you ever look at things like the Pick and Praise or like NHC or anything like that, right? The people who win, they usually end up having some kind of bomb that not a lot of people ended up having, right? So you have to create that separation somehow. But like I said, those are top heavy contests. So when you're talking about a top heavy contest, you do have to zig a little bit. So I think I'll pass that race in the contest. If I was playing a double up though, Jackie's Warrior would be in every single lineup.
If he's in every double up lineup, he's in no double up lineups.
The capital D's are great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
You guys get the 2 other horses I liked. I won't belabor the point, but Baron and Right Talk, I think the other one is. Those are the 2 best. And if you get 40 points for $5,000, that's probably better than 11 grand for 65 points. So that's the other way to look at it.
Well, here, let's do this. Let me bring up a view of, here we go. There we go. Can we see that? So this is what the charts you're looking at chartinghorsevalue.com. And again, I'll put up a link here. You can go and get the Pennsylvania Derby chart for free. Thank that man right there, Jeff, for doing that for everyone. But you take a look at these, and you can go to our YouTube page, but also there's a ton of blogs on the website to take a look and see what all these means. But yep, we've got Jackie's Warrior up top, and then Jeff just talked about Bayran, and you talked about Real Talk. Is that right?
Yeah.
So take a look at those. If you are looking for value and you do want to play against Jackie's Warrior here, those are two that you can take a look at, and you can learn about these figures over here and why you would play them. And same thing, once we go down to, I talked about this race and this being a high value horse, Stonegate, if you are looking to have one in the last, which is always interesting, I think, in the stable duels, because I think a lot of people end up, kind of picking the feature race, and so then their stables are done and they're like, okay, like I'm going to be in third, and then a bunch of people, sleepers if you will, picked one in the last, and then the whole leaderboard changes and you're like, what just happened? Something to think about, because a lot of people are focused on those feature races. So if you want to have a sleeper move in that last race that can bump you up, I don't think that that's a bad strategy to have. So let's go to race. Let me see here. Are we race 11?
Yep,
we're race 11. Yes, because obligatory is who I like. I'm going for a Mott horse here, and I can tell you, I don't know if it's the names actually make me usually play against, but I like obligatory a lot here. 10-1, $1,000. I mean, I think you throw the last race out. Like it says, lost footing at start. I still need to watch the replay. So Josh, you said you were watching replays. I'd be interested in what you said. The horse is going a bit further here, which I think can only help her. Grade 1, Acorn got second only by half a length with the same jock aboard. I think obligatory can really come out swinging. I mean, the works are great as well. That's who I'm going. 10-1, I'd be doing $1,000 in my stable duel. I think it will be bet down, but hopefully we can catch some value there with her and get some win money. So, Josh, did you watch that replay? Can you back me up, or what?
I'm checking my notes here real quick. I did watch the replay, and I didn't have anything to note on there, really. So I know it said lost footing at the start, but I must have not thought that was a big enough.
It wasn't like absurd or anything. It wasn't a great start, but it was. It was fine. I don't think it was. I think it was more like the race shape in that particular race that she just didn't get a lot of pace to run at. So that she'll probably get a. That's my concern. I think with her in this spot a little bit is just the race shape. But yeah, that particular spot, she's got good enough races to win.
Yeah, no, definitely. I have her marked down as an A. So like I was looking at, we did our stream on Thursday night and we took a look at a cross country pick 5. And I want to say that this race is part of it. And
it's the 9th at Parks, 11th at Parks, 12th at Parks. There's one at Churchill and there's one at Belmont.
Yeah. So I had this horse marked down as an A. I really liked obligatory. And then Caleb at some point liked to remind me that there was what they like to term a Josh horse in this race. And that's the 8, Always Karina. With the 7 not shipping in Private Mission, it kind of took a ton of the speed that might have been in this race out. And now you're looking at Always Karina might be kind of lone speed in this spot. I wasn't a huge fan of that test. I mean, the horse didn't get the lead, and it didn't really even try to get the lead. So, is marked as an E8, is $5,000. So if the horse does get out to the lead, I think that she's going to set pretty soft fractions and she might be able to wire it. My only opinion in this race is that I'm pretty against Clairiere in this spot. I was a bigger fan of the 4 Marcuccia or the 5 Army Wife or obligatory. So this is another tough race. But I wouldn't sleep on the 8 whatsoever. Always Karina. I mean, if she gets the lead, I mean, I think she might just be gone.
Yep.
Husky
I know Gino likes Always Karina. Yeah.
Yep, that's my same thing. Josh, we're in the same spot here. There are 2 this race and in the next race. I feel like you kind of have to. To me, she felt like a must play because you're paying 6-1. She's probably going to be 7-2 now with the scratch of Private Mission, and she's going to be on the lead. And do we know she wants to go this far? No. In fact, Chad Brown even said, yeah, maybe she doesn't want to go this far, but she's sure going to be on the lead. And she's stretching back out from 7 furlongs where Josh hit it. That was the plan. Whether or not it was a good plan, you could tell they didn't want to go last time. They broke and they grabbed a hold right away, and they wanted to see if she could sit off the pace because she was so good in her first 2. And then she was a little disappointing in the Mother Goose. It seemed like a race where she absolutely should have won that. I think afterwards they cut her back and they felt like, yeah, we can maybe sit and we can pass some horses. She didn't want to do that. Now what do? You stretch right back out. You put her right on the front end and you just let her go. I'm playing Always Karina. She's going to get bet down. So we're going to be already getting value there. And I just don't see anyone that goes with her naturally. I thought Army Wife is the one to beat. So if you don't like Always Karina or you want to spend up a little bit more, Army Wife is just really, really good right now. Look at what she's done this year. You can't knock any of her efforts. She was behind Search Results and Maracuja in a race where she had legitimate trouble that day. She came back in a couple softer spots, back-to-back graded stakes wins. She takes the lead in the Alabama early in the stretch there, and they were going 1.25 miles. It's just a little bit too far for her. She is super honest, multiple graded stakes winner. And just a shout out to Parks. Obligatory is a grade 2 winner. Will Secret, grade 3 winner. Maracuja, grade 1 winner. Army Wife, multiple graded stakes winner. Clariere, grade 2 winner. Leader of the Band, grade 3 winner. And I'm using the one that's not a graded stakes winner. How about that? Always Karina.
Yeah, no, it's a heck of a card today for sure. Jeff, who do you think?
Can you throw up my sheet really quick? I think it's worth showing this race.
Yeah. I feel like it takes me forever to figure this out, but I'll get it. All right, here we go.
All right. So when you look at this thing, I want to focus on PFDS and best odds and look at Army Wife and Obligatory, 6.2 to 1 or 6.4 to 1. Best odds 4.7 or 5 to 1. Basically, I have these two horses as completely equal. That's my opinion, of course. But one is 10 to 1 and one is 3.5 to 1. I would totally play Obligatory over Army Wife. I think Army Wife is legitimate. You guys made great points. Now, when I do my sheets, the little plus horse, every race I give one horse the plus. And that's the horse I think is the best wager in the race. So even if you were just betting win, play, show, I would be on the 1. Now, I totally agree with Always Karina. That's probably who I would also use. E8. 94, going to be on the lead by himself. I look at this rank column. I want to see ones. Always Karina gets one of the ones and gets the B grade. I mean, so to me, this is a race. You could go too deep. I mean, I know you guys want to get maximum points, but Clariere never wins. And Obligatory and Always Karina could run 1-2 at very good prices.
Bold. I mean, I like Obligatory. Army Wife, I don't know what it is, but now Gino and a lot of this discussion has turned me on Army Wife a little bit. My second pick was Maracuja, so I might need to rework after some of these discussions. But I think there's much to be had in this race, which then, I mean, after that leads us to the next one, which is the big feature. This is the Pennsylvania Derby. This is what it's all about. But honestly, these races are awesome. I think it's a stat card in general, so it's a super card to take a look at. But the grade 1 Pennsylvania Derby is 1.125 miles on the dirt. We are looking at colts in this race and obviously some powerhouse names. Hot Rod Charlie, you've got Midnight Bourbon, which, that horse, both of them I feel like can't catch a break this year. Like Hot Rod Charlie had a heck of a race and was taken down. You had Midnight Bourbon closing, clipped heels, lost the rider. And I think, you look at the speed figures from the Preakness and then to Travers, like what would that race have been? It's really interesting. But then you've got, you got some other ones people are talking about, American Revolution. And then what's one other people are kind of, Speaker's Corner, which brings me to you, Gino. Who do we like in this one?
With the scratches in this race, so the 2 Keep Me in Mind is out and the 9 Medina Spirit is out. I will use Speaker's Corner, but my advice is that there are 3 horses that are 12 to 1, or actually 4. Folsom, Speaker's Corner, Weyburn, Bourbonic. Use one of those horses. That would be my advice, because they're not going to be 12-1. You're going to be scratching Keep Me in Mind, who's 8-1. You're going to be scratching Medina Spirit, who's 2-1. A lot of the money is going to be taken out right there. So any of these 12-1 shots that you're going to be paying for is going to be 6 to 8-1 right off the bat. Mm-hmm. I'd recommend you use one of them. And for me, I land on Speaker's Corner just because I have no clue what this horse is. We really don't. He comes off of a monster race. He threw a big speed figure. What I like is that he's had 6 weeks now to recover from that. He didn't come rushing right into a race after running a big effort. That was his first start at 3. He even has upside off of that race. And he's got the type of style where I think he's going to be sitting close, but he's not going to be on the lead. Now, we don't know. Like, he may not be this good. This may be an acid test type. So if you like Folsom, it's tough to knock what he's done. He can jump up with one of his better races and really compete. My major piece of advice for this is use one of those 12-1 horses. Now, all that being said, Hot Rod Charlie is the most likely winner of this race. I have 0 knocks on him as a horse, but just from a StableDuel standpoint, I think you're going to get so much value from spending $750 here. And then you think about what you can do with the whole rest of your lineup all day long, building your lineup. You've got still 49,000, you got so much money that you can still play with there. I end up with Speaker's Corner.
Okay.
Josh?
Unfortunately, I also ended up on Speaker's Corner.
Josh, we're in trouble. We're going to be having a good day or a bad day. Yeah.
So, right. When I look at these races, and Caleb loves to make fun of me for this, because we'll be on a call and we'll be talking about stuff, and I use Brisnet PPs, and I scroll all the way to the bottom to the little race summary that's shows all the pace figures, the average, the best, and it shows their run style. And when I see a bunch of E's and I see a bunch of 8s and 7s and 6s, I start to look differently. I started to look at a different spot. I want to see who's going to come off the pace, who's going to get first run on these horses that are going to be sitting up front. So basically, if I'm looking for a horse to win this race, I'm tossing a horse like Weyburn. I'm tossing I Am Redeemed. I know they're short prices. I'm also tossing Midnight Bourbon. I just think that the horse is going to be pace compromised in this race. I think Midnight Bourbon needs the lead, but also doesn't really want to go very fast. So, if you look on Brisnet, has an E8 figure, looks probably the leader here. But if you look at the pace figures, you look at the fractions, the horse hasn't really gone that fast on the front end. So
that's a great point, because he's like a bigger horse that, if he gets out his own way and he starts cruising, he's tough out there, but he's not that fast. He's not just like a speed demon. That's a really good point, Josh.
Yeah. So I just started looking, hey, who's going to be coming off the pace? I loved Keep Me in Mind in the spot. And unfortunately, Keep Me in Mind a scratch. Keep Me in Mind was an A horse for me, along with Hot Rod Charlie. Unfortunately, with the scratch, Keep Me in Mind, I kind of was just looking, I'm like, all right, who's going to kind of sit that same trip? And I landed on Speaker's Corner here. I think $750 for a horse that probably won't win. But if this horse finishes second or third and you paid $750 for it, I mean, you're gonna be happy. I mean, you're gonna have gotten value out of this race. That being said, if you somehow, some way you end up with salary and you can afford Hot Rod Charlie, this would be a spot where I feel like you could take the chalk, because you're only gonna be paying $8. You're gonna be paying $8.5. $8,500, and you're going to get a horse that's probably going to go off at even money, So I think is going to be worth a bet at something like 6-5, 7-5, 8-5. I think that horse is that much of a likely winner. So I think you're going to get a bit of an overlay on Hot Rod Charlie. It's just with the way the rest of the races stack up, are you going to be able to afford Hot Rod Charlie in the spot?
Yep. Well,
Jeff?
you guys are picking the potential rising star, in Speaker Charlie. If I was on StableDuel, I'd be picking Folsom, who's a similar horse, very consistent, definitely could take second or third in this race. And you never know if the race went his way, and it's the same thing. It's only $750.
Yep.
So for me, it's Folsom, but Hot Rod Charlie's going to win. Is very tactical horse. Can go to the lead, can come from way out, can come from 2-3 lengths off. and the horse has incredible grit and drive in the stretch. Okay, so I think Hot Rod Charlie is going to get the first jump on the closers, and they're not going to be able to catch him. Midnight Bourbon I love Midnight Bourbon. He had everything his own way in the Travers, was able to really slow it down, still couldn't win. Watch his races. He never passed. I mean, he passed one horse in the Preakness, but he very rarely passes horses. I think he gets passed in the stretch. Parks is a tiring track, and there's enough speed. He's going to tire a little bit. He could definitely slip to third or fourth. I think he's a risk. I think Hot Rod Charlie wins, and probably Folsom and Speaker's Corner come in behind.
Okay, so I know that some people hate what if questions in horse racing, but I feel like this would be fun. Yeah. So what if Medina Spirit was still in this race? Would we be betting Medina Spirit, or do we think he'd be beat?
I'd be playing against.
Me too.
And for a lot of the reasons that Josh mentioned, I don't know if the race would have shaped up all that well for him in a race where there's already a pretty good amount of speed. I kind of opposite to Bob. The draw actually would have been fine for him being drawn towards the outside with his speed, but I don't know if the shape would have. I would have preferred Hot Rod Charlie even with Medina Spirit in the race, and now you take Medina Spirit out, you take Keep Me in Mind out. Probably, in my opinion, what would have been like the second and maybe fourth most likely winners of the race. That really makes it look like a great proposition for Hot Rod Charlie, because I think I agree with both Jeff and Josh that I'm not that sold on Midnight Bourbon. He's fine, but he seems like a horse who kind of needs things to really go his own way to win, and he sort of got that in the Travers and still couldn't seal the deal. I think he might be a little like over the top even coming off of that race last time out. So True. Yeah, I would have been against Medina Spirit. And so like from a gambling perspective, I'm kind of bummed that he didn't show up, because he probably wouldn't have been on a lot of my tickets. He would have taken a lot of money and he would have given me value on some others.
Yeah. No, I think Midnight Bourbon for me is that horse that you're always like, oh, he just needs a win, and he's definitely due. And you say that every race, and then he misses. And yes, like every time. And then Hot Rod Charlie for me is as if he's like an 8-year-old just powerhouse, but he's still not. He's still so young, but he's just that good. The heart that comes out of this horse in this stretch, I think, is unmatched this year. And this is an exciting race anyways. But yeah, I'm interested to see how your value picks do here. I think it'll be exciting. Is there anyone in the last race that you all want to touch on?
Yeah, I got one for you. They're going to go mile and 16th on the turf. It's the Alphabet Soup. Shout out to Alphabet Soup. Was one of my favorite horses. The 9, he was a good one. The 9 St. Marco. You know, if you just look at his turf form overall, he's actually been pretty consistent. You can put a line right through the synthetic race 2 starts back at Presque Isle, and look at his last 4 or 5 turf races. You sort of know what you're going to get from this horse. He's going to make a late run. If the race shape is to his liking, he will pass horses. He will pick up some pieces. And he's coming out of races where he's been facing open company. And now you're going to be dealing with Pennsylvania breds. I know this is a stakes race, but when you move from open back into restricted state bred company, that's sort of like a lateral move, sometimes even like a class drop when you go from open back into a Pennsylvania bred spot. The 9 is 12-1. Another situation where would only cost you $750, not a lot. And I feel pretty, confident that you're going to get a run from St. Marco. Maybe he doesn't win, but he will launch himself. He will finish maybe second, third in the money and pick up some points for you at not much off your StableDuel lineup. So give me St. Marco to close things out.
Josh, you got anyone here?
You know, I was probably most interested in the 1, You Must Chill. You're going to be paying $6,500 here. You get Jamie Ness and Frankie Pennington, who are winning at like 60% the past 2 months. And if you look last out, did get a little bit of a soft ground, but had that typical turf running line, right? Is going to sit, 5th or 6th. Okay, we're coming around the turn, and okay, we're going to, put in some kick and get out there. There's just not a real clear pace picture for me in this spot. So when I kind of get into those kinds of spots, I'm kind of looking for the horse that's in best form. It looks like they've tried to put this horse on turf 3 times of the last 4, got washed off twice and still won, and then finally got on the turf and won again. So the horse is just in really good form. This horse is probably going to be super short, probably much shorter than the 9-2 in this spot. So I think that this is probably going to be it's going to be value at 6,500 at 9-2. So I'll take a shot here with You Must Chill, the one.
All right, Jeff, we've got some questions for you. So let me do this. Okay. Let me do the share screen, bring this one up for people. Here we go. Okay. And then I've got Michael over here. Got to ask Jeff what he sees in Stonegate. Thought he was much better on the dirt. So go ahead, Jeff. What do you got?
If you look at his PPs, he's got a couple seconds and thirds on the turf going back, or third and fourth on the turf. And he's on the dirt. He's been running well. And then he really dramatically improves in his last race. And then they're wheeling him back in, 19 days. So, to me, he's a great bet at 12-1. I think the morning line is wrong, and he's going to go off a lot shorter. It's a crazy race. Take who you like, but that's my pick.
Stonegate. I'll be putting some money on that. Why not? All right, guys. Well, that's about it for the Pennsylvania Derby Stakes races. And then we covered that last one as a fun freebie. But again, look down at the bottom that has been scrolling this whole time, chartinghorsevalue.com. This chart is for free. You can see on the left-hand side when you go to the website, it will say free charts. You click there and you'll see the Parks 925. Take a look at it. You can see, that the horses are sorted by, who we think should win up there. And then all the other values, you can look into it on the blogs or check out our YouTube video that Jeff and I did at StableDuel's YouTube for more information. But we talked about a few here, and it's just something to look at with value horses, but also, if you're going to spend on the favorites as well, up here, Jackie's Warrior is rated at the top of his race 10, so if you're going to spend on one and you are thinking you're going to get a bunch of links, go ahead and spend on Jackie's Warrior. Hot Rod Charlie down here, obviously one of the favorites, but maybe that's where you spend if you think your strategy is to get those winning points. But as the boys discussed, this is definitely going to be a game of strategy for all stables, just because some of these races, with like the popular horses, it's the same for me. Like emotions get involved, like who you like kind of gets in the stats, and you just don't want them to get beat. And so I almost like to bet non-big racing days a little bit more, but it opens up some value for StableDuel. So any last tips for anybody? Any last pointers? What do we got?
You heard me repeat, you want to sort of sniff out those horses who you think are going to be bet down from their morning lines, because that's right off the bat, you're paying less. You're even if those horses don't win, even if you don't love them or like them as much as you like another horse in their race, you probably want to use them. Josh has hit a couple points throughout the show that I think are key. If you're someone that plays other sorts of daily fantasy stuff or other sorts of contest formats, that's how you have to think about this. This isn't as much as just trying to pick the winner of every race. It's more about, do I get a better value horse that maybe finishes second or third here? And does that help my stable a little bit later on? Just like anything you do, don't spend hours handicapping and then spend like 30 seconds putting your StableDuel lineup together or putting your pick 4 together. Have time to formulate your wagers, formulate your contest, and make sure that you spend that time there too, because there's nothing worse than going, I handicapped, I like that race, but then you were in such of a rush to put things together, you forgot or you did something. Give yourself time, get a bunch of lineups in. You got plenty of time today.
I'll give a final tip. I'm kind of new to StableDuel. I've played like 9 games, but my average points per race, I don't know if this is good. It's about 31 points per race. I think it's pretty good based on what I'm seeing out there. And the reason is my odds lines are better than the morning lines. So look hard at that value column. That's when there's an overlay relative to the morning line. Maybe not for post time, but definitely an overlay to the morning line.
Hold on, I of course picked the wrong one, so we'll just go through this whole thing. All right, so your value line, so you can see up here, he's talking over here in this green. Show it?
Not yet.
Oh, jeez. All right,
think
let's try.
Yeah.
Technology, guys. Technology.
That's actually when we're
Here we go,
live.
right here. All right, so your value is right here.
Yeah, the value tells you there's an overlay relative to the morning line. So, obligatory is value against that morning line. I would look, how I'm getting 31 points a horse. Okay. And I've cashed like 4 out of 9 games. So, I mean, I'm doing okay. I haven't won a game yet. I'm disappointed by that. But I'm doing well in the games I've been entering because I'm finding value relative to that morning line. And anywhere you see that value is a place you could take a shot.
And just to note, if we're doing math here, if he's averaging 31 per horse, that's a normal stable of 310 points. So if you look at the leaderboard and where 310 final points end up on the leaderboard, he's doing just fine. And you're due for a win, for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, Josh, any last tips?
No, I think everyone kind of covered it. I always try to kind of look at this coming from somebody who used to I still played DFS, but used to play a lot more. And lineup construction is really important. And like I said, you kind of, when you're playing these big contests where the top prize is worth a lot of money, like you have to play to win and not to cash, right? You gotta go to the top. And I really like Mark and Caleb. I mean, Mark loves to bring this up to Caleb all the time, but we ended up in a situation in a contest where Mark took a horse that he had a horse he liked, but was so concerned about not losing points versus trying to win. If he would have stuck with his guns, he probably would have won. He would have won something. I forgot. It's some astronomical amount, but I always got to point to that. Like, try to win, right? The first couple races, there's a couple of maiden races where I think there's definitely a lot of value. Take a look at those races, take those cheap horses early, and then kind of build your stable based off of that. But generally, I'm someone who avoids maiden races, but with so much chalk later on, and you got to use some of it, you're gonna have to take a shot in some of those maidens early.
All right, guys. Well, good luck today. That's also the good thing about StableDuel is you can play more than one stable in your paid game. So switch up your strategy. If there's a horse, a couple of value horses that you like, but you can't, use them in one stable, that's all right. Play another stable and see which one chalks up to be the right one. But $12,500 chartinghorsevalue.com. Pennsylvania Derby dashes today. Get in there. It's $150. Winner wins $4,000. You're not up against all the horses. You're up against only the stables that are playing. So it is a good time to be playing for that $4,000 win. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you popping on. Good luck. Let's keep it up on Twitter.
We got an hour.
To get your,
got an hour. Early post time.
Yeah.
Get in there. Get your stable set. All right, guys. Have a good one.